Psalm chapter 4. Answer me when I call, O God of my righteousness. You have given me relief when I was in distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer. O men, how long shall my honor be turned into shame? How long will you love vain words and seek after lies? Selah. But know that the Lord has set apart the godly for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. Be angry and do not sin. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds and be silent. Selah. Offer right sacrifices and put your trust in the Lord. There are many who say, who will show us some good? Lift up the light of your face upon us, O Lord. You have put more joy in my heart than they have when their grain and wine abound. In peace I will both lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. Psalm chapter 4 begins with David's plea to the Lord to answer. And that plea to the Lord to answer is quickly followed by David remembering the relief that God had given him in time past. No doubt about it, it was these previously answered prayers, the prayers that brought relief in David's past, that causes David to cry out again. God has been faithful to him in answering prayer, and he has no doubt that God will be faithful again. I love how the NLT says it here in these first verses. He says, God can set him free from his troubles. I like that. Verse 2 makes clear that at least one of the reasons why David is crying out to God, well, it's people, right? People. What are we going to do with people? People are trying to ruin his reputation. People are making groundless accusations against him, and people are flat out lying about him. This is what causes David to cry out to the Lord. Have you ever been there? Have you ever felt the sting of rejection that comes from people? I know I have. It's not fun. It's never fun. And sometimes, despite all our best attempts to clear the air, to find common ground, or to reconcile, man, that trouble still remains. And so what do we do in moments like this? Well, I think David here in Psalm 4 has a great remedy. The first thing that he says is do what I do. Cry out to God, right? David has a remedy for us. He says, cry out to God. As we saw in verse 1, the first step is to pour our troubles at the Lord's feet. We tell him what we're feeling. We tell him what we're experiencing. We cry out to the one who can free us from our troubles and declare us innocent. We cry out to him because we know he knows, right? We cry out because we know he is sovereign over all things and nothing is hidden from him. He knows the truth, not just your version of the truth or the other person's version of the truth. He knows the whole truth. The second thing that David says here is it comes in verse 4. He counsels himself and those who will read his song, don't let anger have control over you. And I love this. What he really says is, listen, you got to sleep on it, right? The NLT says it this way, think about it overnight and remain silent. When you're struggling with people, sometimes the worst thing that you can do is open your mouth and let the anger spill out in the moment. This is when we are most prone to overreact. The third thing David says is to offer sacrifice in the right spirit. You see, when you're struggling with the way people are treating you, or when you're just struggling with people around you, this is not a time to turn away from God. This is a time to pour into God, to continue to worship, to continue to offer yourself as a living sacrifice to him. How many times, though, when the going gets difficult, do people try to handle it all by themselves and turn away from God? Instead, David says, stay close. And finally, the fourth thing David says is trust the Lord. Here's why. He is a joy-giving God, verse 7 says. Not just joy, but incredible joy, unstoppable joy. When we put our trust in God, as verse 8 says, we can lie down and sleep. When we trust God, difficult people and difficult situations don't get to steal our joy, and they don't get to take away our slumber, right? When we trust God, we trust the one who has the ability to make us dwell in safety. So David says four things. Cry out to God. Don't let anger get the better of you. Sleep on it instead. And worship a God who's worthy of our trust and who is able to give us peace in the middle of the storms that we are experiencing. Right after this video ends, there's going to be some questions on the screen. I want to encourage you to wrestle with those. Maybe get with somebody else and talk through these questions and just dive a little bit deeper into what's going on here. And I also want to invite you to head on over to our podcast, which is connected here to Psalm chapter 4, where we, with some special guests, dig deeper each week into these Psalms that we're studying. So glad you joined me today. Look forward to seeing you back here next week for our study of Psalm chapter 5. Have an incredible week, and may God bless you as you strive to live for Him.